we're going to go through a bunch of the current songs that are out, and we're going to see where they came from.
Who's doing what? Welcome to Get to the Hook. I am your host, Charles Latibeaudiere.
And I'm your host, Eric Colley.
All right. Actually, Eric, for this week, as we get to the hook here, and the hook is Eminem. He's the example of what we're going to be talking about here, but we're going to refer to Eric as Professor Colley this week because he's going to be teaching you about 3 terms that you've heard a lot, and you may know them, but you may be mixing up what they're actually about. The 3 terms are, Professor?
A cover, a sample, and an interpolation.
Ooh, interpolation.
Interpolation's where people get a little
Big word.
And sometimes a song can have 2 of those things
Right.
at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to go through a bunch of the current songs that are out, and we're going to see where they came from. Because,
Who's doing what
yeah.
on the charts this week? This is actually going to be fun. This is going to be...
I love seeing what songs are sampled in other songs because you discover a lot of cool old songs that way. I didn't know in the 90s that I was a closet Isley Brothers and Isaac Hayes fan. I just didn't know.
Yeah.
And then I started listening to them and realized, oh, wait, I know that. This is an Ice Cube song. This is a Notorious B.I.G. song. That's a Faith Evans song. Like I liked you guys for years and didn't know. It's fun to see where it comes from. And we're talking about this because Slim Shady is back for the last time, apparently.
Back again.
Back. Guess who's back? Eminem dropped his new song, Houdini, which is his old Slim Shady persona. He's dusting off the early 2000s. He says this is it for Slim Shady. Well, it might actually be. But if you heard the song, especially if you're of a certain age, you immediately recognize it.
Sure.
So this is a little bit of Eminem's Houdini and the Steve Miller Band's Abracadabra. Abracadabra. If I'm elastic, I want to reach out and grab you. I mean, it's a sample. It's almost a cover.
Sample. Okay, so
he's re-singing the chorus. The rest of all the verses are different, of course.
Yeah. You just lifted the.
It's the rhythm
chorus.
Track. Yeah.
It's the same thing. It's the same beat. But that's all that he's using from the Steve Miller song is just lyrically. He's just using
the abracadabra part. Yeah,
right.
and then the music is looped throughout. And Steve Miller's very happy about this. He issued a statement saying that he was very honored that Eminem would want to use the song. Also, probably honored he's making a lot of money off of it. So that's a big part of this. So let's get into what's the difference between a cover, a sample, and an interpolation.
Yes. What has Eminem done here?
This is a sample with a little bit of interpolation by Eminem re-singing the Abracadabra, which also is kind of a cover. It gets confusing. I have a control artist here to break these down. Mariah Carey. Ooh. She has famously done all of these things.
So she would be like your TA.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
All right.
So a cover, I think most people know what a cover is. It's when you just record your version of somebody else's song. Maybe you do it very faithfully, kind of straightforward. Maybe you change it up, change genres. You could even swap some of the lyrics out. But you're basically
doing that song.
Reinterpreting your version of someone else's song. So this is Mariah Carey.
Very famously did a cover.
Had a #1 hit with it. And fun fact, because I don't think people think of her as a songwriter, of her 19 #1 hits, she wrote or co-wrote all of them but this one because it's a cover.
All right.
So this is a little bit of Mariah's Unplugged, I'll Be There, which is a cover of a Jackson 5 song, classic song. So here's both of them. Just call my name and I'll be there. I'll be there. And oh. She didn't really change it very much.
Right.
And that's just her covering it.
Yeah.
Now, a sample is when you take somebody's actual recording, the actual song, and you loop a part of it. Maybe you speed it up, maybe you slow it down, maybe you chop it up and paste it in a different order, but you are taking the actual recording. And so Mariah did this with her song Fantasy, which uses Genius of Love by Tom Tom Club, which is super catchy and super hooky.
And has been used a lot.
A lot. And it's sort of, Mariah got a little, lost some money because of this. I'll explain that after. But here's Fantasy and Genius of Love. Sweet, sweet fantasy. Now, what kind of sucks for Mariah?
Can I get this one?
Yeah.
Interpolation, right? Full interpolation.
No, it's a sample. She's using the original recording.
All right, I got to take notes. I am going to fail this class.
Mr. Latibeaudiere,
right, sample. Okay.
So that's a sample because she took the actual original recording, looped it, added a beat to it, did her vocals over it, all that. What kind of sucks for Mariah? Not that she needs the money. Remember the song "Big Energy" by Lotto a couple years ago?
Right.
Lotto was a Mariah Carey fan. She basically was sampling Fantasy. She used the word fantasy in the lyrics to make it
Probably
clear.
not even realizing.
Well, no, she did, because when she did the sample, and in her mind, Lotto, it's like, oh, it's Mariah Carey. She got Mariah to be on the remix of it. Obviously, she's a Mariah Carey fan.
Yeah.
But when she used that original fantasy sample,
Now she's got to pay Tom Tom Club.
Tom Tom Club gets paid. Mariah got nothing. She's not listed as a songwriter because she didn't write that music.
But did Lotto know? I guess my question is, did Lotto have the knowledge that it was actually a Tom Tom Club sample, or was she thinking all along, like when she heard the Mariah song, did she know it was a sample, or did she
Maybe
think
not.
Mariah?
I mean, her if she didn't know it, her lawyer sure did.
Right. When she said, here's
Yeah.
what we're going to do. And the lawyer's like, okay, here's what
Here's what you got to do. Now, that's why interpolation comes in. So an interpolation is when you use lyrics from a song or a melody, a vocal melody, or even you could even do the music, but you're having somebody replay it. So you're not using the actual recording of the song. You're having someone else play it, part of it, which famously, you know, Rapper's Delight by Sugar Hill Gang, the very first commercial rap hit ever. What does it sample? Good Times by Chic?
I always thought it was a sample. This is where you're going to tell me is an interpolation.
It is an interpolation. And
really?
The thing is, why people like interpolations, one, you can just be a bit more creative because you're not just limited to what the actual recording is. But the biggest reason, and this is why the Sugar Hill Gang did this, it's cheaper. Because if you're covering or sampling or anything a song, you've got to credit the songwriters, you're sharing those royalties. There's a difference between the written song and the actual recording. If you're using the recording, you got to pay a fee up front.
Right.
You got to pay royalties on that. That's much, much more expensive.
So you want to save some money, you make your
You make your own version.
Your homemade version.
So the Sugar Hill Gang did sample it originally, and then they found out, it's going to cost us like hundreds of thousands of dollars to use that Chic sample. So instead, for a couple grand, they got musicians to come in and replay the bass line and the drums, and then they looped that.
Okay, Professor.
So that is actually not a sample.
So, Professor, I have a very famous case here.
Yes.
And I don't remember how it all shook out, but one Rob Van Winkle,
yes,
Vanilla Ice, certainly was claiming that Ice Ice Baby was an interpolation, right?
He was saying it was a different song because there was an extra bass kick in it.
Meaning that he actually had someone come in and actually record
But I think
recorded differently is at least what he claimed.
It was over top of the actual sample. So that he did sample, and that's why he tried to be like, no, but it was. And so, and to that point, he has said in interviews, Vanilla Ice, he didn't make a lot of money off of that song.
Right.
Because Queen and David Bowie got the lion's share of it because he took their recording. If you had replayed it yourself, you still have to give them writing credit. They'll get that chunk, but you don't have to pay for the recording. So this interpolation, this one's really obvious because Mariah Carey calls it out. And her song, We Belong Together, massive, massive hit. There's a part in the song where she's, sad about her guy leaving, and she's listening to the radio, and she's hearing these sad songs that are just reminding her of it. And she specifically references by name, in this example, Bobby Womack's song, If You Think You're Lonely Now. She says his name, she sings a little bit of his song. So this is her referencing him, and this is his original song.
Bobby Womack's on the radio, sing to me. If you think you're lonely now. Wait a minute. If you think you're lonely now.
So she's not covering his song. The rest of the song's entirely different.
Right.
She's not sampling him. She's not using his recording. She's just mentioning it, using a lyric, and using a melody.
Okay.
So that's an interpolation.
One other example that comes to mind. Didn't Whitney Houston do the same thing where she called out? It was an Isley Brothers song. What was the song?
When she did Between the Sheets?
Yes.
One of Those days, I think.
Yes, one of those days, right. And part of it, she says, Mr. Big's on the radio.
Yeah. So, but Whitney, those were when she did her covers, like I Will Always Love You.
Yeah.
And I'm Every Woman, but to this point, I Will Always Love You. And this is the difference with like the publishing and all that kind of stuff. Dolly Parton said that Elvis was interested in recording I Will Always Love You originally before she even did it.
Right.
And Dolly was a big Elvis fan. And she's like, to have Elvis sing my song would be great. Colonel Parker, Elvis's manager, who was shady about a lot of things, said, we'll do it, but we own the publishing. And Elvis gets a co-writing credit.
And
Dolly said, I wish he could do it, but I'm not giving that up, which was brilliant on her part because if she had done that, when Whitney covered it,
then
the Elvis estate would have gotten the lion's share of the money.
Why would she?
Dolly's such a smart woman.
So did they just think that, because it was Elvis, that she would just give up her baby? Like,
yeah, because a lot of people did. Because she wasn't a huge star at that point. That could have elevated her, but she was Dolly Parton's brilliant. for all of her, playing dumb. She's not dumb at all.
Yeah.
And she's like, I wish I could give it to you, King, but this is my song and you don't get it.
All right. So we've established covers, samples, interpolations. Now we're going to get into the charts now.
We're going to run through some samples, and then at the end we're going to do some interpolations. And here's the really shocking thing. You would assume most of these would be like rap or pop songs, right? Because rap is built on sampling.
Mm-hmm.
The interpolations is the hottest thing in country.
Yeah.
It's the reason in the past year, Tracy Chapman and David Bowie and Jaquan, 2000s rapper, Phil Collins, they've all written country hits. It's weird that it's happening in country. But let's start with what's going on in rap right now. Now this is these are straight samples, but you can mess with the sample. So this song, Kendrick Lamar is Not Like Us. This was the big shot in his Drake beef war.
Right. This is the one that ended everything.
Right, and
buried Drake.
Part of the reason it's endured beyond the
beef,
the virality of the beef, is because it's just a catchy song. Because he took an old soul song by an R&B jazz saxophonist, sped it up a little bit, and made a hook. So this is Kendrick, and then this is the original. Monk Higgins is his name.
All right, shout out to Monk.
Player. His song I Believe to My Soul. So this is the two of them together.
They not like us. They not like us. They not like us.
It's a lot slower.
Wow.
The thing that sucks for Monk Higgins, so Kendrick had to pay to license that recording.
Right.
But Monk doesn't get a writing credit because I Believe to My Soul, his song, Monk's song, is a cover of a Ray Charles song.
Oh my God.
So Ray Charles is credited as a songwriter on Kendrick's song for a song he kind of had nothing to do with.
Ray Charles. Who would have thought? Brother Ray and Kendrick Lamar
taking down Drake.
Coming together to take down Drake. Wow.
Yeah.
That one's deep.
But and again, to mention Ray Charles, talk about it being cheaper. When Kanye made Gold Digger, originally he sampled Ray Charles. Then he found out how much that was going to cost.
Right. And
he
then
thought,
calls his buddy Jamie Foxx, why
just get Jamie Foxx to sing?
Who does a Ray Charles impersonation, so come on in.
So Ray still, his estate still got money because Ray wrote the song, but they didn't have to pay for his recording because they just like, let's just get Jamie Foxx to do it. So
these cheap bastards.
Especially for like newer artists. I mean, Kanye could have afforded
sense.
it in 2005, but you save a lot of money that
way.
Doja Cat, Paint the Town Red, #1 hit last fall. Did you recognize the sample now?
I did, immediately.
Yeah, this is her bringing Dionne Warwick. I was trying to say Warwick and Burt Bacharach. Dionne Warwick.
If Dionne were going to have a rap name, maybe Dionne Warwick.
She's not whack. She's awesome.
She's not whack at all.
Dionne
She's
Warwick.
great, and obviously Doja Cat felt the same way.
Yeah, so this is Doja Cat's Paint the Town Red using a little bit of Walk On By.
Bitch, I said what I said. I'd rather be famous instead.
Take those old Burt Bacharach songs, put some thumpy bass on it.
Yeah.
You got a hit. Which also shows those are just great songs.
Right.
Because the hooks and the melodies still appeal to people. Even if you
have to speed them up a little bit, but it's still...
I don't think that one they did anything to it. They just put a beat over it and she rapped over it.
Right.
But if you're 15 and you like Doja Cat, you probably don't know Dionne Warwick.
No idea.
Your parents probably didn't even know that song if you're that young.
If you're 15, you listen to it, you grow up and you think, oh, that's a great Doja Cat song. And then when you get into music, you end up sampling Doja Cat and then someone has to tell you, wait a second, it's Burt Bacharach you have to pay.
Dionne didn't really, well, she might have made some money because her voice is
because they used her voice on it.
Yeah, I would assume so. I would hope so.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
But Burt's estate's making a lot of money there because he died last year, sadly. One a little bit more recent, this artist is still very much alive. And I think it's like the Lotto thing where you have an artist who just loved something growing up and wanted to use it. So Megan Thee Stallion, her new song, Boa, samples Gwen Stefani, What You Waiting For, which was her very first solo single after No Doubt. And the thing that really worked out for Gwen Stefani, and she would not have known this in 2004. I don't know if you remember What You Waiting For, but in the background of the whole song, she's going tick tock, in reference to a clock about time going by. But now, but Megan Thee Stallion's like, oh, all these hoes on TikTok, like referencing the app. But so yeah, this is Megan and Gwen Stefani.
Bitches doing all that womp, 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 womp.
I don't remember that Gwen Stefani song.
It only got to number 47. It was the single before
probably why.
Holla Back Girl.
Okay.
Yeah. But clearly Megan Thee Stallion remembers it. And if you've seen the video for Boa, it's got Dance Dance Revolution in it and like Nintendo 64, and it's all this very early to mid 2000s nostalgia, which is why the Gwen Stefani sample works perfect for that. So, you know, those people who are like teenagers then are 30-something now, and they're nostalgic. And
Right.
so you're seeing all these early 2000s hits getting sampled. This next guy, Jack Harlow, had the biggest hit of his career when he did First Class, sampling Fergie's Glamorous.
Right.
Because all these fans were like, oh, I remember this song. I love this. His current hit, Lovin' on Me, was not an obvious sample. It's an R&B song from
I
1995.
didn't know this was a sample.
Yeah,
I mean,
I didn't know
I
the song.
would have guessed it was, but I couldn't spot it.
So I love 90s R&B, and I was like, what 1995 R&B song did he sample that I don't know? I was ashamed of myself.
All right, we need to find out.
it's a-
Let's hear the song, and then we'll figure out who this person is. Because
You won't know.
No.
Okay.
I don't like no whips and chains, and you can't tie me down. But you can whip your lovin' on me, baby, round and round and round.
So the bass line, the vocals, that chorus is all from the song Whatever by Cadillac Dale.
Cadillac Dale. Please educate me on
So, yeah.
Cadillac Dale. Who is
I was like,
this
who
gentleman?
is this guy? So if in Lovin' on Me, you know how Jack Harlow says, I get love from Detroit, like Skilla Baby, and Skilla Baby is a rapper who's big in Detroit but not huge nationally.
Right.
Cadillac Dale was a Detroit singer who was big in Detroit in the 90s but never got big nationally. So I think Jack Harlow, and I don't know which came first here, if he'd had the sample and thought, I'm going to show some love to
I'm gonna
Detroit,
go to Detroit.
or I want to do something showing love to Detroit, let me get a sample from this guy who's a legend there.
In
But
Detroit, yeah.
and Cadillac Dale is obviously very, very happy about all this because
Oh,
he's
yeah.
like, it took y'all 28 years, but now you know who I am.
So Cadillac Dale. This one is a sample.
That is a sample. So he took the vocal, sped it up a little bit. The bass line of Cadillac Dale's song is also the bass line, the hook
Right.
of Jack Harlow's song. So the whole song is basically built around that.
He is the bedrock that
He is.
that Jack is standing on.
And I
with
love that
hit.
he's getting
Yeah.
this huge payday now because he's listed as a co-writer. You know, he got the publishing. I'm sure he owns it because he wasn't on a major label, I don't think. So he
Look
probably,
at that, man. It's years later, like just because of technology and trends in music, and here's a guy who probably just thought, I mean, what his mailbox money, if it was,
if there was any
anything,
before.
right, was probably infinitesimal, and now suddenly he's getting fat checks.
I mean, I'm sure
Gotta love that.
tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars just coming in one after the other. Which
Shout out to you, Cadillac.
good for you, Cadillac. And
By the
also-
way, using the name Cadillac, I don't know if that's his given name, but when you're in Detroit and you go by Cadillac, you're going to be a legend.
that's true. Maybe that's why he put that on there. I think he was just Dale originally, and then he became Cadillac Dale. Yeah, and the great thing about with sampling now is, you know, in the 90s, like I was saying, when I would hear songs, even if I knew it was a sample, I couldn't just go listen to it. You'd have to actually have the record or go buy the CD or something, and that assuming it was even in stock. If it's some older R&B
Yeah.
record or something, now you can just pull up anyway. If you're like, oh, it samples this, let me listen to it, which is great.
Right. And especially what I advise is if you listen to pull up a playlist from whatever service you're on and listen to just like 70s soul or listen to like 70s, well, now it could be 70s soft rock you could listen to.
Oh, yeah.
And you'll suddenly hear songs and be like, oh, I know that song. That happened to me with, what was the, Joe Cocker. I happened to hear this Joe Cocker song one day, and I was like, wait a second. That's the Dre beat.
That it
That's
is
where the-
California
California
Love,
Love.
is Woman to Woman by Joe Cocker.
I never heard the
the
Joe
whole
Cocker
dun,
song.
dun, dun,
Dun,
dun, those
dun,
horns, all
dun,
that
dun, dun,
is
yep.
Joe Cocker.
Wow.
And you see, we wouldn't have known that back in the 90s, but now you can pull up.
So
anything.
there's our tip for you.
Do you consider, you know, some people consider sampling lazy. They're like, oh, you're just taking someone else's song because you don't have any talent. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that it can, if it's all you do, if that's what you're doing for every song, then yeah, it does start to seem kind of lazy. I know that it is different because you're putting usually different lyrics over it, but you didn't create the music. And that's the part that feels
To me,
lazy. But
It depends.
you know, look,
it depends on
it's
the
different in
sampling.
hip hop
Yeah, but like, because some people, you know, people used to accuse Diddy before they accused Diddy of other things.
of other things.
But back in the 90s, like a lot of his big hits, it was just the rhythm track of a really obvious big 80s hit. And
Right.
part of the reason you want to do this for a lot of these, if you use a famous song, is because it's instantly recognizable. People already know your
And
song.
it's
going
gonna
to
get radio play.
Right.
And that's what Bad Boy built
Yeah.
it.
And
Built its
he
whole
used,
reputation.
he used really huge hits. It can be a little lazy that way. I think there's some people, like Pete Rock was a producer, or, you know, Jay Dilla, all these people that would take, oh, here's 3 seconds of this old like jazz record nobody's ever heard of, and it's in the same key as like this funk song that nobody's ever heard of.
Yeah, I do.
And
think
they would
that that's
layer and
creative.
build things, and they use the samples like an instrument. To me, that's a lot more skillful than even if you do play music. You could be in a band and be lazy, just play the same hooks over and
Yeah.
over and the same basic chords. I think producers who can really build like this tapestry of music out of these different sounds, it's impressive when you look at the breakdown. Like, oh, they took this, they chopped that up, they
Chopped
sped
that
this
bit of it.
up,
Yeah.
and they make a whole new sound out of it.
Right. And if you're taking different things and you're bringing, if you're taking a melting pot and suddenly creating something all new, that I get. But if it's some of the bad boy things started to feel lazy because it just
Yeah.
felt like this was their formula. We're going to take a big hit from the 70s and we're just going to put a different.
It was almost like
beat.
karaoke. It's like just play the track in the back, and I'm just going to say something over top of
Right.
it.
Right.
Uh,
But it worked.
It works, and it still works. This Don Toliver, he's not a huge A-list rapper yet, but he's big and getting bigger. His song "Bandit," and the first time I heard this, I was like, "Wait, I've heard this," but it's sped up. He sampled Tame Impala, the like indie synth rock band, which is a
Okay.
weird.
This is-
You don't think of most rappers as going for that kind of thing. So this is his song "Bandit" with a sped up sample of Tame Impala's song "One More Hour."
Ride the highway, ride the bus. I did it for love.
Which, if you know Don Toliver first, it's weird to hear theirs. It sounds slow,
Yeah.
but
Like
that's
he
the actual
slowed it-
original song.
Sounds like you slowed it. I was wondering, how do they come? I mean, there's a producer, right, who's bringing the beat to him. So there's a producer, because you just wouldn't think Don Toliver was listening to like
But he
Tame
might have been.
Impala. But I guess he might have been. It feels like to me like those are things that a producer just goes through. It used to be going through an old crate
Right.
of LPs and you'd find something. But I guess now that everything's so accessible on streaming services, then maybe artists are actually doing it.
I think they listen to a lot more stuff. I think people in general listen to a lot more music than they get credit for.
Yeah.
You think, oh, if you like this kind of music, you don't like anything else. And that's probably not as true anymore, especially now that it's so easy to listen to anything.
Yeah, exactly.
You might be like, I'm tired of listening to this. I'm going to pull up a playlist of whatever other weird genre or
Right.
era. Or
And you know that you could stumble upon something that you're going to hear something in that old song, go like, oh wait, I can make I can make a gem out of this. Here's
right.
and you change that up. So yeah, it would be worth your while.
Well,
to listen to old
for
music.
old school producers before streaming, it was called crate digging. Where you'd get a crate of records and a producer would go through and just try and find a 2-second breakbeat, just something you could make something out of. And they would find this random weird stuff, which was also probably cheaper to license
Right.
because these weren't big artists. So they made some classics out of that.
Yeah, absolutely did. Thank you, hip hop.
But speaking of weird influences and genres and things, so we're going to look at 3 interpolations. So these are
Okay.
not samples. These are, one of them sounds like it. One of them is meant to sound like a sample, but it is not. These are all country songs.
All right.
Country is really veering outside of the country genre. Luke Combs had his big hit with Tracy Chapman's Fast Car, which that was a cover. He just
Yeah, straight
he
cover.
didn't change it very much at all. It didn't even change the gender, which I do give him credit for that.
Yeah.
He said, I'm working as a checkout girl. I'm like, okay, Luke Combs. Shaboozey. You know Shaboozey? You heard of him?
I have heard of Shaboozey, yeah.
He's on Beyonce's Cowboy Carter record. She really gave him a huge platform. And he was, they always say luck was it when opportunity and preparation meet?
Right.
He was lucky and he was prepared, and now he has taken that exposure from Beyonce and he's turned that into a huge hit. His song, a bar song, Tipsy, which interpolates, so it uses a little bit of the lyrics. It's not it's not a sample, but from Jaquan's 2004 hit Tipsy, big one-hit wonder.
I mean, it makes
rap
sense that you
song.
do a bar song and you interpolate.
Well, when you think about
Tipsy.
it, a lot of country and a lot of rap lyrically are kind of the same thing. It's about going to a bar, going to a club,
I'm
meeting
sorry,
a girl,
come
getting
again?
drunk. Think of it. Now, the words are different,
Right.
but the themes of
But
go
the
to the
theme
party,
is the
get
same.
drunk,
Okay.
go in your
with
truck, go in your nice car, go in
Okay.
whatever. It's the concepts are the same.
I agreed.
They're
Okay.
just
Hadn't
culturally
thought
different.
about that, but yeah.
So this is Shaboozey flipping a little bit of the lyrics of Tipsy.
There's a party downtown near 5th Street. Everybody at the bar getting tipsy. Everybody in the club getting tipsy.
And it's not just that part of the song about everybody in the club, everybody in the bar.
Right.
In the verses of both songs, it's the 2 to the 3 to the 4. Like Shaboozey redoes that part too. And Jaquan gets a songwriting credit. So he's successful country
Sweet for
songwriter, Jaquan.
See, this is This is the creativity you get when you let black people do country music.
You're
See?
right. You're right. You're right. This is a bit more cynical. This was so most of these, like we said, if you do a sample or an interpolation, you go to the publishing company or the artist or whatever and get permission, clear everything. This time, the publishing company came to a songwriter and said, "Hey, start sampling our stuff." So Warner Chappell has bought a chunk of the catalog of David Bowie's publishing, and of course, they spent a lot of money on it. They want to make some money back.
Sure.
And there's inherently just money in David Bowie's catalog, obviously. But if they can get more exposure, get some new hits.
Get a new hit, right.
So they went to this songwriter and said, "Hey, see if you can do something creative with David's catalog." And he's a country songwriter.
Okay.
So he took the guitar and the melody of David Bowie's 1974 song, Rebel Rebel, and he wrote a song called Young Love and Saturday Nights, presented it to this singer, Chris Young, who's like a big country star. He liked it, and so they didn't sample it. He has a guitar player replaying that guitar hook from Rebel Rebel, and the whole chorus is built around the melody. This is the two of them.
Young love and Saturday nights. Saturday nights. Rebel, rebel, put on your dress. Rebel, rebel, your face is a mess.
Just took the melody.
Yeah, and like I said, if you listen to the beginning of Chris Young's song, it sounds like a sample because it's that same scratchy that but it's not. It's his guitar player replayed it, so they're not paying.
So interpolation.
That's an interpolation
Nice.
because they replayed part of it. They used the melody of it, but they're not actually using David Bowie's recording. But this is great
But
now.
it's great for Warner, which now owns Warner Chappell, which owns it. So they're still, even though it's an interpolation, so they're still going to get
The publishing.
they're still going to get the publishing.
And the hope is that country fans who might not have been huge David Bowie fans will now seek out Rebel Rebel. If they're like, "Oh, I like that. Let me hear what the original was." So they're just trying to
They're just trying to maximize.
a different genre, a different age group.
Right.
They're trying to hit a whole new target demo, and I'm sure it'll probably work.
Big business. Big business.
Well, remember Chris Brown's song "Forever"? It was like one of his last
yeah.
big hits
Yeah,
before the whole Rihanna thing. And the lyrics in that song, when he goes "double your pleasure, double your fun," Double Mint paid
Double
him.
Mint.
They paid him to do that. It was a commercial.
Oh, it was put in because
Yep.
Wrigley actually said, put this in the song?
Yeah, they said, "Hey, we'll pay you if you do this."
I always thought they just used it after.
No,
made
and
the song.
remember Pitbull's
So it's an
"Give
integration.
Me Everything Tonight," where he goes, "Take a picture of me with a Kodak." Kodak gave him money.
Integration.
Yeah, it's an integration in a pop song. And as long as it's catchy, we don't care.
Right.
We are literally listening
And
to
it worked,
commercials.
right.
Yeah, so this is that Chris Young song is a commercial for David Bowie's catalog. But he got a huge hit out of it, Chris Young. Everybody wins.
It's a win. It's a win all around.
It's a win.
All right.
This one was not so cynical. Kane Brown, who's been a big star for a while now. Who doesn't love Phil Collins in the Air Tonight?
Everyone loves that song.
Everyone.
But how would you ever work it into a country song?
Well, he
It's
worked a
just-
little bit of. This one is again, it's an interpolation. He was originally going to sample the drums, the famous the doo-doon, doo-doon, doo-doon. And he does have someone replaying it in parts of the song. But basically, it's just he had a song called "I Can Feel It," and then thought of, "Oh, I can feel it coming in the air tonight," and so he just used a little bit of that lyric.
I can feel it coming in the air tonight. Hold on. 'Cause I can feel it in the air, feel it in the whiskey.
It's not obviously the rest of the song. You wouldn't be like, "Oh,
Sure.
that's Phil
The rest
Collins."
of it isn't. Yeah.
But that's the most obvious part. That's why I pulled that part where he goes, "I can feel it coming in the air tonight." Oh Lord,
Yeah.
that's not one or two words. That's definitely
Right.
the hook of "In the Air Tonight." But he wanted Phil Collins actually to come play it with him, play the drums. I think that was going to be a big surprise thing. He was going to do the song, and then have Phil Collins come in with the doo 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 doo.
Right. Phil's
But
not really playing
Phil-
drums these days. His
No,
health
he
is not.
Yeah, his health's not great, so unfortunately he can't play the drums. But and I
Someone
think,
had to break that to Kane. He's like, listen, I
Yeah.
know you love the song, but he's getting up in age.
yeah, well, it's still.
And he's just had the health issues even before he
Yeah.
was getting older.
Kane got a big hit out of it though. Phil got a co-writing credit. So again, so now Phil Collins and David Bowie and Jake
Busting in the country.
writing country hits. It's the genre lines are blurring. I kind of love it. I like people just do what you want to do.
Right.
If it sounds good,
And it makes everybody listen to different music. It's sort of
Right.
like, and honestly, using those songs is going to actually make more people listen to country who wouldn't have listened to country before. So
right. And it might make if Kane Brown has a bunch of like younger fans,
cross-pollination.
they will be like, "Oh, let me check out this Phil Collins song." And everybody who hears it's like, "This song is great."
Yeah, how can you not love that song?
Oh, it's so good. I love Phil Collins.
Yeah, my poor my car stereo speakers. Every time they're like, oh no, here he goes again. He's gonna turn up the whole drum thing. We know.
Boom, 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 boom. You can't not turn that part up.
You can't. You're wasting airwaves. Well, I guess not airwaves
No.
anymore. You're wasting the streaming if you don't.
But that, to that point, I think, when we were growing up, it was still, there was radio station you mostly listened to. And stations were like, there's a pop station, a country station, a rock station. Some people would flip between them, but usually people would put it on one and leave it on that.
Right.
Now with streaming, I think people just listen to whatever. Genre just doesn't matter to them.
Yeah.
Which, again, I kind of
It's
like.
awesome. That's all a good thing. This is
listen to what you
all a
like.
good thing.
Right.
Well, that's going to do it for today's class.
A B+.
B plus,
Yeah.
maybe for someone out there listening. I definitely got like a C minus. I might have to take this class again.
Oh, well, yeah, we'll have to do this in a couple months because I'm sure there'll be a whole
It
new
keeps
batch
changing
of
on
new
the charts.
samples. And
Excellent.
things.
I like this. I'm going to do better.
Okay.
Mom, I promise.
Now you know an interpolation.
I promise I'm going to pass, Mom. That is going to do it for Get to the Hook. We will see you next time when the professor will be, when school's back.
Classes in session.
All right. Thanks, guys.